3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Haas and Vamp Incorporated.
We're gonna do it. Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Do it.
By the latter half of 2018, Penny Marshall, the groundbreaking actress, director, producer, and one of Hollywood's most pioneering creative forces, had largely retreated from the public eye. Though she had long since stepped away from the kind of high-profile directing work that defined her in the 80s and 90s, she remained an active presence behind the scenes, collaborating quietly on several projects in development with her older brother and producing partner Gary Marshall before his death in 2016. She was also reportedly involved in early-stage work on a documentary about her own career, as well as consulting on a Broadway adaptation of A League of Their Own, though the projects remained in flux as her health declined. Marshall hadn't made many public appearances in her later years, but she remained a beloved guest on talk shows and retrospectives when she did surface. In 2016, she appeared on a network special about the making of the film classic The Sound of Music, where she appeared as part of a panel celebrating Hollywood's musical legacy. She was also featured in a 2017 HBO documentary titled If You're Not in the Obit, Eat Breakfast, where she appeared alongside other entertainment legends reflecting on their lives and careers. Though visibly more frail than in years past, Marshall's humor and warmth remained intact, her unmistakable Bronx voice and no-nonsense delivery always managing to cut through. Marshall first won over audiences in the 1970s with her role as the wisecracking Laverne DeFazio on Laverne and Shirley, a sitcom that became a ratings juggernaut and a cultural touchstone. Her thick New Yorker accent, physical comedy chops, and infectious chemistry with co-star Cindy Williams made her a household name. But Marshall had ambitions beyond the small screen, and she quickly transitioned behind the camera, becoming one of the most successful female directors in film history. Her 1988 hit Big, starring Tom Hanks, made her the first woman to direct a film that grossed over $100 million. She followed that success with Awakenings and A League of Their Own, both critical and commercial hits that showed her talent for balancing heart, humor, and emotional depth. These films weren't just blockbusters, they were cultural events, rich with memorable performances and meaningful storytelling that elevated the Hollywood landscape. But Penny's life wasn't without struggle. She survived lung cancer, underwent multiple surgeries, and quietly retreated from the spotlight in her later years. Still, her circle of friends remained as iconic as she was. Rob Reiner, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Wahlberg were among them, and she was often seen courtside at Clippers games, still lighting up every room she entered. But on the evening of December 17, 2018, Marshall, whose exuberant madcap energy and impeccable comedic timing kept audiences laughing for decades, died peacefully at her home in Los Angeles due to complications from diabetes. Her death marked the end of a singular career that spanned television, film, and cultural history, and left behind a legacy that was both groundbreaking and deeply beloved. Penny Marshall was just 75 years old. I'm Derek Kaufman.
I'm Jason Beckerman.
And this is Last Days, Penny Marshall.
The news of Penny Marshall's death reverberated across Hollywood, prompting an outpouring of love, admiration, and grief from actors, directors, and comedians who had either worked with her or been inspired by her trailblazing career. Social media was instantly flooded with tributes. Her Laverne and Shirley co-star and longtime friend Cindy Williams wrote, "What a remarkable woman. I am utterly heartbroken." For many, Marshall wasn't just a coworker. She was a comedic force and mentor whose success as a director helped pave the way for women in film. Tom Hanks, who starred in Big, the movie that made Penny Marshall the first woman to direct a film that grossed over $100 million, paid tribute to her influence and humor, writing, quote, "Goodbye, Penny. Man, did we laugh a lot. Wish we still could." Rosie O'Donnell, who had starred in A League of Her Own, shared a throwback video clip of Marshall directing her on set, tweeting, quote, "She was one of a kind. She made everyone feel like family." And Gina Davis, her other leading lady from that film, credited Marshall with, quote, "changing my life and the lives of so many women in this business." Beyond the personal tributes, there were public remembrances of Marshall's legacy. In Milwaukee, where Laverne and Shirley was famously set, fans gathered outside the bronze fawn statue to leave flowers and notes. The Milwaukee Brewers paid tribute on social media, calling her, quote, "a beloved part of our city's pop culture history." Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, the marquee at the iconic Cinerama Dome was lit with a simple message, quote, "Thank you, Penny Marshall." It was a nod to her impact, not just on TV and film, but on the fabric of American storytelling.
And several late-night hosts paid homage as well. On The Late Show, Stephen Colbert opened his monologue with a moment dedicated to Marshall, calling her a, quote, true original, someone whose voice you couldn't mistake and whose work always had heart. Jimmy Kimmel followed suit, showing a montage of her best moments, from sitcom gags to behind-the-scenes clips of her directing Tom Hanks in the now iconic Chopsticks piano scene at FAO Schwartz from Big. The tone was somber but filled with laughter, a fitting tribute for the comedienne who was rarely sentimental and always in search of a laugh to break the solemnity of an occasion. On a more serious note, the Directors Guild of America issued a statement praising her groundbreaking work, emphasizing that she had opened doors for women in a male-dominated industry without ever losing her distinctive comedic sensibility. In the days that followed, multiple film schools and organizations held screenings of her most beloved films, particularly A League of Their Own, which many now see not only as a sports movie, but as a story of sisterhood, grit, and ambition, values that mirrored Marshall herself. Penny Marshall was remembered as more than just a pioneer. She was, in the words of her friend Billy Crystal, a, quote, genius wrapped in a hoodie, with a Bronx accent and the biggest heart you ever saw.
Do you think of her as Laverne, or do you think of her as the director of League of Their Own? I think is her most famous work. I know Big, but I think she's totally associated with League of Her Own.
It's a great question because I'm on the cusp, right?
Yeah,
I was born in
age-wise,
1980, so Laverne and Shirley is before my time, but I think of her as Laverne because I was raised singing that theme song. It was a very big show in my household. It was in syndication by the time I was a young kid. I loved it. I thought she was hilarious. I thought she carried the show. Cindy Williams is great, but she's the
Laverne,
comedy.
It's Laverne's vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cindy Williams sort of played a little bit more the straight person to the comedy that she generated. And I thought she was so unique. There's no one like Penny Marshall. The voice, that accent, the energy she brought. And it was a spinoff from Happy Days, you know? So you had to, she was friends with the Fonz. That's how the show started.
Was it created by Gary? Was Laverne and Shirley was created by her brother, Gary, right?
Yes.
He would cast his sister, but made her a star.
A star.
Yeah. She would wear that giant L on her sweaters wherever she would go. It was just like a character that I don't think has ever been seen before or after on television. But she was, I mean, up there with the Fonz as the most sort of indelible characters of the television characters of the 70s.
And it was so culturally resonant that, you know, Wayne's World comes out in the 90s and they have that whole sequence where he and Garth are in the bottling factory doing the entire theme song. Yeah. So people of the next generation still think of her as Laverne, even though behind the scenes, I think her career was even more impressive as a director.
Sure. What she did as a female director in an industry that is famously male-dominated was really something special. And to this day, I mean, A League of Their Own still holds up. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
A private funeral service was held at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, attended by family, friends, and longtime collaborators. The guest list was a who's who of Hollywood, as you'd expect, with appearances from Rob Reiner, her ex-husband and lifelong friend, as well as Carrie Fisher's daughter, Billie Lourd, who shared how close Marshall had been with both her mother and Debbie Reynolds. Mark Wahlberg, who was reportedly in talks to star in a project she had once considered producing, also attended, paying quiet respects to a woman he called a real one in a heartfelt Instagram post.
Few figures in Hollywood history have left as distinct and enduring a mark on both sides of the camera as Penny Marshall. In an industry where women were often expected to choose between being taken seriously and being funny, Marshall carved out a space where she could be both and helped open the door for countless others to follow. Her television and film career was defined by a rare blend of comic timing, creative vision, and cultural intuition. She didn't just play roles or direct stories. She shaped the way America saw women in comedy and beyond. From the lovable slapstick of Laverne and Shirley to the heartfelt storytelling of Big and A League of Their Own, Marshall became one of the few entertainers to achieve monumental success in front of and behind the camera, and she did it without ever losing the authenticity that made her feel like family to her audience. Marshall first broke out in the 70s on the hit sitcom Laverne and Shirley, which was a spin-off of Happy Days, and the show quickly took on a life of its own. As Laverne DeFazio, the tough-talking, soft-hearted brewery worker from Milwaukee, Marshall quickly became a household name.
A society gentleman would only go out with you for one reason. To have a good time, a few laughs, and a little vodeo-do-do. I don't vodeo-do-do. You vodeo-do-do. I don't vodeo-do-do. your vote-o.
The show's physical comedy, punchy dialogue, and chemistry between Marshall and co-star Cindy Williams made it a ratings juggernaut, hitting #1 in its second season. Jason, you're of the right age to know how big Laverne and Shirley was. There's a few shows. Happy Days was the epicenter of culture, and it spun off a bunch of other hit shows. I'd say Laverne and Shirley is probably its biggest show that it spun off. Mork and Mindy is another very famous one with Robin Williams.
I'm trying to think of what the sort of the modern sort of example of this would be. I mean, we've had plenty of spin-offs. Frasier came from Cheers and was also a huge ratings juggernaut. But television was smaller then, right? You had the three networks, and that's all you watched. Everybody watched. And if you were on a show in prime time on ABC, NBC, or CBS, you were an enormous star. But
All in the Family was similar. It had the Jeffersons. It had Maude.
Yeah, those. In terms of spinoffs, yes. But that's the kind of thing that happened, right? Gary Marshall, anything he touched would turn to gold, so they're going to give him the next project and the next project. But that show, it didn't eclipse Happy Days, but it became a standalone project. Mork and Mindy never did.
Right.
Joni Loves Chachi never did. They were just spinoffs. This was a show that became full in its own right. I mean, it had Lenny and Squiggy, which became characters in their own right. You had Carmine Ragusa, the bag ragu. I was a huge fan. This was part of my after school routine, was to come home and watch Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. I personally thought Laverne and Shirley was a better show. It was deeper and sort of
funnier, felt a little edgier.
It dealt with sometimes more serious topics. You know how Happy Days started to do that towards the end of its run, started to deal with more serious topics? Laverne and Shirley sort of started there and did it, but in a really more sophisticated comedic way. It wasn't as sort of like young kids getting in trouble and hijinksy like Happy Days was. It was a really important show, and it dealt with issues of sort of, the place of women in society in a way that Happy Days obviously never.
Yeah, and there weren't that many shows that centered women as funny. I guess Maude did so as well. That was a big show with B. Arthur that spun off of spun off of All in the Family. But Laverne and Shirley was hilarious.
And Laverne and Shirley was just so much bigger. So much bigger culturally.
But the show wasn't just a commercial success. It was also a cultural milestone. Laverne and Shirley was one of the few shows at the time that centered the lives of working-class women. And Marshall's performance brought dimension and dignity to a character who could have easily been played as a caricature. By the early 1980s, Marshall had begun shifting her focus to behind the camera. After directing a few television episodes, she got her first shot at a feature film with 1986's Jumpin' Jack Flash, starring Whoopi Goldberg. The film didn't reinvent the genre, but it was an early indication of Marshall's instincts as a director. Give strong, funny women the spotlight and let their personalities shine through the chaos. Her true breakthrough came just 2 years later with the 1988 movie Big.
Oh! The space goes down, down, baby, down, down the roller coaster. Sweet, sweet baby, sweet, sweet, don't let me go. Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa bop, shimmy, shimmy, rock. Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa bop, shimmy, shimmy, rock. I met a girlfriend, a Trisket. She said a Trisket, a biscuit, ice cream, soda, pop, vanilla on top. Ooh, Shalita, walking down the street 10 times a week. I met it, I said it, I stole my mama's credit. I'm cool, I'm hot, sock you in the stomach 3 more times.
Josh?
The story, obviously, of a boy who wakes up in the body of a man, played by Tom Hanks, and the film was a massive hit. It grossed over $150 million worldwide and made Marshall the first woman in history to direct a film that crossed the $100 million mark at the domestic box office. This was a juggernaut. Tom Hanks was a big actor before this, but Big really launched him into the stratosphere.
It's a movie that today is seen by everybody. I mean, it's right up there. I think with like the comedies that are most resonant with the younger audience today.
It's a classic.
It is a classic.
Yeah.
Big wasn't just a commercial success. It was a deeply human film that balanced whimsy with poignancy. Marshall's direction was light-handed, but emotionally astute. She understood how to draw both childlike wonder and grown-up sadness from the actors. It cemented her reputation not only as a box office force, but also as a director with a distinctly empathetic touch. She followed it with Awakenings in 1990, a more serious drama starring Robin Williams and Robert De Niro, which earned multiple Oscar nominations. It was further proof that Marshall's talent extended well beyond comedy. She could tap into complex, emotional landscapes and still make the stories widely accessible. Perhaps her most beloved and lasting film, though, was 1992's A League of Their Own.
You start using your head. That's that lump that's 3 feet above your ass. Are you crying?
No.
Are you crying? Are you crying? crying! There's no crying! There's no crying in baseball!
A fictionalized account of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League during World War II, the movie, which starred Gina Davis, Tom Hanks, and Rosie O'Donnell, was both funny and deeply moving, an ode to women's strength, friendship, and perseverance. It resonated, not only as a sports movie, but also as a feminist statement, delivered deftly without preaching. Lines like, "There's no crying in baseball," became iconic, but what lingered most was Marshall's ability to tell women's stories with scope, humor, and heart.
I admit, when A League of Their Own came out, I was already old enough that I sort of rolled my eyes at it and was like, I don't know if I need a movie like this. Over time, that movie's reputation has become her biggest film.
Have you watched it with your daughter yet? I watched it with my kids about that age, and they loved it.
It's wonderful.
They're not, we're not a sort of like a household that talks about women empowerment always, but they recognize sort of what they were watching here, and it sort of sets it up. John Lovitz plays the bloviating male sort of scout, and Gina Davis is fierce in that role.
A little lore, my very first Halloween costume in this office. Gina Davis from A League of Their Own.
That's right. And that has started Derek and I cross-dressing nearly every Halloween since. True story, by the way.
What a proud tradition it began. Marshall continued directing into the late 90s with films like Renaissance Man and The Preacher's Wife, and though these didn't match the success of her earlier efforts, they reinforced her commitment to telling stories that focused on human connection and personal transformation. Unlike many of her contemporaries, she didn't chase spectacle. She found drama in character and everyday life. Her sensibility as a director was warm, curious, and inclusive, always leaving space for both comedy and tenderness to coexist. What made Penny Marshall's legacy so singular was not just her resume, but her impact. She succeeded in genres and roles that had long excluded women, doing so without conforming to anyone's expectations of what a female filmmaker or comedian should be. She proved that women could be the star of the sitcom and the director of a blockbuster, that they could be hilarious and serious. In the process, she became a role model not only for women in Hollywood, but for anyone trying to break into a system that often seems built to keep people out. And today, her work continues to inspire new generations of directors, writers, and performers. Women who do it all in Hollywood, like Lena Dunham, Mindy Kaling, Ali Wong, and Issa Rae, who saw in her career a roadmap to success that didn't require compromise. Penny Marshall didn't just open doors, she kicked them open with a laugh, a hoodie, and an uncanny ability to tell stories that stuck with you. And her legacy lives on every time a woman steps behind the camera and tells a story with guts, grace, and a little bit of gumption. And that's why Penny Marshall has become indelibly woven into the fabric of American comedy, not just because she was funny, but because she helped make space for funny women to lead. As a performer, she brought in every woman charm to roles that were smart, goofy, and completely authentic, characters who didn't shrink themselves to be liked. As a director, she shattered industry ceilings, showing that women could helm blockbusters without sacrificing soul or humor. But beyond the credits and accolades, what truly set Penny apart was her warmth. Friends, actors, and crew members alike remembered her for her generosity, her loyalty, and her abidingly unpretentious spirit. She was that rarity in the Hollywood machine that made people feel seen, whether they were a rising star or a stagehand. And so I wanted to give the final word to one of the frequent collaborators and another Hollywood legend known for his rare blend of warmth, sincerity, and comedy, Tom Hanks, heard here lovingly talking about his fondness for Penny and her quirky, ingenious approach to mining comedy behind the camera.
Penny shot way too much on movies. Like we called it, we're making movies by attrition. Eventually something happens and you have to stop filming that day.
Right.
The sun goes down, you run out of film, the crew rebels, enough. There would be times when I'm saying, Penny, can you please make up your mind about how many angles you want from this scene? Because we've done 312 takes. And she says, well, I don't know what I want. I don't want to know.
Right. Her mouth never opened when she talked.
Anybody could do an imitation of the dear Penny by just clenching in their back teeth and talking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I want. I'm going to be in an editing room in 8 months, and I'm going to say, how come I need a shot like that and I don't have it? You know why? Because I didn't shoot a shot like that. So shut up and give me a shot like that.